Okay, guys, here we go. In this video, we are going to discuss why is it that God did not accept Cain's sacrifice. And when we look in the Psukim, this is hard to tell. Right? Initially, Pasuk Aleph that we already studied tells us how Cain was born and named. Then Pasuk Bet mentions at first that there was a second child, Hevel. And here are all the facts that we have about them. Fact number one is that Cain and Hevel had different jobs. Hevel was a shepherd, and Cain worked the land. Fact number two is that at some later date, Miketz Hayamim, literally at the end of days, after a lot of days had passed, Cain brought God an offering. Cain brought a mincha, an offering or a gift to Hashem, from fruits of the land, which makes sense because Cain is a worker of the land. He's a farmer, Oved Adama. And so if you work the land, it makes sense that you're going to have fruit to give. Hevel, who was a shepherd, who was a ro'et son. So what did he bring? He brought mibcharot sono umeichel vehen. He brought from the firstborn of his sheep and from their fat. And God, Vayisha Hashem al Cain vel manchato. The word Vayisha is a little bit difficult to translate. It means something like God paid attention to him. If you're ever not sure about a word like this and you want to know more about it, you think it's a rare word, if you go to this website called alhatorah.org, you can actually click on the words. So where it says over here, Vayisha Hashem, we click on the word Vayisha, and it tells us in the dictionary over here that it means like to gaze at. If we get really lucky, he'll quote our pasuk. Our pasuk is from Genesis, so let's look. What do you know? Genesis 4:5. That's our verse, right? So he tells us over there that it means something like to turn or to gaze at or to regard with favor. That makes more sense in our pasuk. Hashem regarded Hevel's korban with favor. So Hashem liked Hevel's korban, but Cain v'manchato lo sha'a. He didn't like Cain's korban so much. Again, this is strange because we're only in the fifth pasuk. The first pasuk was about Cain's birth. So we only have these three psukim, Bet, Gimel, and Daled, and in that, it doesn't seem like we really have enough information to explain why doesn't God like Cain's korban. And so Mefarshim looked at this and they tried to find evidence in each of the couple of facts that we do have. So the first fact that we have is that Cain was born first. Right? First, Cain's born in Pasuk Aleph, then Hevel's born in Pasuk Bet. Maybe that somehow is relevant, right? I'll return to that a little bit later. Right? But that's one possibility to think about if the Torah doesn't give us a whole lot of information besides who was born first, then maybe who was born first matters. Secondly, the Torah gave us their professions. Maybe that matters. So here we have to ask ourselves, is there any reason why God would favor somebody who's a shepherd over somebody who's a farmer? And third, the Torah says that Cain brought mi priha adama, from his fruit, from the fruit of the land, whereas Hevel brought mi bechorot sono umeichel vehen, specifically from the firstborn of his sheep and chelav is fat, so these nice juicy fatty sheep. Rashi sees all the same evidence we do, and he tries to suggest that maybe one of these little details is hinting to the reason why God preferred Cain's offering to Hevel's offering to Cain's offering. So look at Rashi over here. Rashi, where it mentions Cain's profession, he says about that, Hevel being a ro'ed son, why did Hevel choose to be a shepherd? Lefi shenit kalalaha adama, because the land was cursed. When was the land cursed? So if you remember back in chapter 3, in the story of the original sin, where Adam and Chava eat from the forbidden fruit, so God tells Adam, as a result of this sin that you ate from the forbidden fruit, you listened to Chava's advice to do that, what's going to happen to you, Adam? Aruraha Adama ba'avurecha. The land is cursed on your behalf. And so until now, you got to eat whatever fruits and vegetables you wanted in the Garden of Eden, in Gan Eden. Now, all kinds of thorns are going to sprout up for you. It's not going to be so easy. You're going to eat food by the sweat of your brow. You're going to have to work the land hard. So Cain apparently said, okay, God said, Arura Adama, the land is cursed and you have to work hard for it. Cain said, okay, I'm up to that task, I'll work hard. Whereas Hevel says, look, if God is cursing the land, maybe I should seek a different line of work. So Hevel said, I'd rather be a shepherd. So Rashi there, again, if you just read our story, nothing in our story says that there's a curse on farmers, but Rashi says, look, something has to be superior about Hevel to Cain. We don't have a lot of evidence to go on here, but we do know they had different professions. Apparently then, Hevel chose his profession, separating from the land because the land was cursed. Moreover, Rashi wants to have it both ways here. Maybe Hevel's better because of his profession. Maybe also Hevel brought a better korban. After all, the Psukim had said that Hevel brought from Bechorot now, right, the firstborn of his sheep, Meichel Vehen. What type of fruit did Cain bring from? So Rashi says, you know what? The Torah just said, Mi pri ha'adama, from fruit of the land. Rashi speculates, min hagarua, from the inferior, the poor quality fruits. Now, the pasuk didn't say that, it just said from fruit of the land. But if Rashi is right, that it was inferior fruit, then that would be a reason for God to reject his korban. I'll say, what, you're a cheapskate, Cain? You take, the rotten ones that you don't want to eat yourself, and those are the ones that you offer me? I don't want a korban like that. And so what's tempting about saying what Rashi says is he's trying to find a way to explain why God would reject Cain's korban. The downside of that is that it doesn't say that in the pasuk. And so we see that Rashi and his French colleagues in France, right, Rashi lived in France in the 1000s, the 11th century, they're struggling with this issue. And so if you look in your Chumash in parentheses, there's a comment which doesn't appear in the Rashi that I'm seeing on my computer here. This comment says as follows. What does it mean that Cain brought fruit of the land? Maybe it does not mean min hagarua, inferior fruit. Maybe it just means plain old fruit. Whatever fruit he came up with. Picture of Cain, he's got his fruit basket, he sticks his hand into his fruit basket, plucks up a fruit, and whichever fruit is the lucky winner that he happens to grab, good, bad, whatever it is, he offers that to God. Lo mutav v'lo muvchar. So, by taking random fruit, whatever one he picked, it was not especially a good one, not especially a chosen or elite one. Mutav means good, like the word tov, and muvchar, right, livchor is to choose, so muvchar means like a high quality one, a select one. In modern Hebrew, in Israel, the elite commando units in the army are called yechidot muvcharot, the chosen ones, the ones you have to be like chosen and singled out as an elite soldier to be in those units. So I think what this comment is trying to do, and note how in Al HaTorah it labels this comment, Likut Mechachmei Tzorfat. There are certain comments of French rabbis that don't appear in Rashi itself, but they appear in certain manuscripts, in this case the Ktav Yad London manuscript 26924. You can go look it up in the the British Library in London. This manuscript, what happens a lot with Rashi is that in the Middle Ages, people learned Rashi and they wrote their own notes in the side. And then some other guy copies it and sees that note and includes it too. So some French rabbi, we don't know who, some guy who lived a little bit after Rashi, saw that Rashi said that Cain offered min hagarua, and that bothered him because he said, look, the Chumash doesn't say that it was garua, that it was inferior, but this rabbi understood what Rashi was getting at, that there's a contrast between Cain, who just brings mi pri ha'adama, any old fruit, versus Hevel, who brings choice fruit, mi b'chorot suno meichel vehen. This French rabbi wrote in the side of his comment, we call a marginal note. He wrote a little note in the side of his manuscript of Rashi, saying, I don't know that it was necessarily garua, but, it was whatever Cain had that day. He didn't specifically look for good ones or select ones. And what happens later is that somebody who's copying over Rashi from that rabbi's copy, and he sees that rabbi's comment on the side of the page, he adds it in parentheses. And that's how your Chumash ended up printing this comment in parentheses, as if it's like a parenthetical remark of Rashi. So what Rashi and this other French rabbi are debating is, how far can you go? If we know, in contrasting with Hevel, if the Chumash specifies that Hevel brought really good fruits, and then it's not so clear on what Cain brought, does that mean that Cain brought inferior ones, or he just brought any old one, not especially good, not especially bad? Either way, that could be one reason that God likes Hevel's better, because Hevel's were specifically good quality. The second reason, like we said before, maybe has to do with their profession. So Rashi brings this up by saying, look, if the land was cursed, so Hevel choosing to be a shepherd means he's avoiding the thing that God cursed, whereas Cain doesn't avoid that thing. However, we could push back against Rashi and say, look, when God cursed the land in Bereshit chapter 3, the curse was that you're going to have to, you Adam and your descendants are going to have to work hard, by the sweat of your brow. You have to work hard to get food from the land. He didn't tell Adam, don't try. He just said, you're going to have to work harder now. So Cain isn't doing anything wrong by working the land. And so again, we have the same problem we had when you compare their korbanot. Maybe Hevel's was a really nice one, but who's to say that Cain's korban was bad? And same thing here. Maybe Hevel did something especially admirable by trying to avoid the land altogether since Hashem cursed it. But that doesn't mean that Cain's doing anything wrong by working that land. And so here, some later Meforshim tried to go even further in distinguishing between shepherds and farmers. Rosh Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, for example, who lived in the 1800s in Germany, I didn't give you this to read inside because it's a very long comment, but he describes how in general farmers tend to be very challenged spiritually. So says Rosh Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, if you look at what a farmer is, he's very much dependent on nature, right? He needs the land to grow, the rain to fall, and he works very, very hard simply to amass a lot of wealth. By contrast, a shepherd is constantly dealing with living creatures, constantly tending to animals. And Hirsch argues that responsibility for other living beings, other sheep, can lead one to be more compassionate, develop one's character and one's compassion over time, and therefore to have a more refined character. And Hirsch points out many of our greatest leaders, the Avraham and Yaakov in particular, we read a lot about them as shepherds, and then Moshe as a shepherd, David as a shepherd. He's not as well known, but Amos the prophet is a shepherd and cattle rancher. And so Rav Hirsch argues that may be another way in which Hevel is simply a better person. And so it's not so much that you offered sheep as opposed to Cain offering fruit. It's that what they offered was a symptom of the professions that they chose, and God liked Hevel's profession better. However, one could push back against this and say, wait a minute, there are whole areas of halacha, like the laws of truma and maaser, the tithes that we take from our produce, that are based upon the assumption that the Torah expects us to be farmers living in the land of Israel. And so again, just like we said before about the different types of offerings they brought, that Hevel might have brought a very fine offering, but there was not necessarily anything wrong with Cain's. Maybe Hevel being a shepherd is a great way to refine his character, but it doesn't have to mean there's anything wrong with Cain's profession. And so the one other thing that some commentaries have mentioned is the very fact that Cain was the oldest. And we know throughout Bereshit there are many cases where a younger brother finds more favor in Hashem's eyes, like Yitzchak over Yishmael, or Yaakov over Esav, or Ephraim over Menashe. And so maybe for all those reasons, here also the Torah wants to say, don't think like many people thought in the ancient world that just because somebody's a firstborn, he automatically deserves all kinds of privileges, to be the family priest, to inherit all the family's possessions. And therefore, again here, Cain didn't do anything wrong. It's not his fault he was born first, but maybe the Torah wants to favor Hevel, even if Cain didn't do anything wrong. Simply Hashem wants to send a message that you don't automatically get privileges for being firstborn. And the truth is you do get some privileges. Even in halacha, a Bechor, a firstborn son, gets a double portion of inheritance. but that's much less privilege than in many other ancient societies, and so the Torah may be pushing back against that as well.